G'day. Welcome to this video about the assessment for the unit that's called Ensure Team Effectiveness. That's BSBWOR502B. No doubt you're looking forward to getting through this one. So this unit is broken into two parts. Part A is fairly short, it's a knowledge test basically. So just 4 questions here, asking you to list and briefly describe the first 4 stages of group development, because we know there are actually 5 stages, but I'm only interested in the first 4 because that's really what applies to work in an operational sense. So hopefully you can just find the pages in the textbook or the workshop notes and put that in your own words. So question 2 or task 2 is compare and contrast. Lovely words. That sort of means you've got to do a little bit more than just tell me. Compare and contrast the 4 leadership styles and discuss how these could be used to effectively manage teams in each of the stages described in task 1. Which is good. So you've already described the first 4 stages, and now you're going to look at the leadership styles that we looked at in the workshop, but also in the notes, also I think in the textbook too. So how would we apply those? Which one's the most applicable style for the particular stage of group development? If you're at the workshop, we've explored that a fair bit. Hopefully you'll be fine with that. Number 3, by referring to the Belbin model of team roles, once again that's in the workshop notes, and we did the questionnaire for the Belbin natural roles. Describe how team performance may be affected by an imbalance of natural roles within a team. So remember, under Belbin there are 8 different team roles that people take up. There's actually a 9th called the specialist, but we won't be looking at that one. So I'm asking you to look then at those 8 natural roles. If there is an imbalance, in other words, too many of one and none of some others, then how do we get around that? How do we still have a functioning team? So remember, these roles are outside of what the job roles are. These are the personality type roles that we take up, our natural preferred way to operate in a team. So there's a bit of information about that in the notes, so hopefully that'll help you. Number 4 then, describe how team meetings may be managed effectively. So we didn't spend a lot of time on this, but there is a handout that was given out about running meetings, and that handout looks at the process of running meetings, setting agendas, all that sort of stuff, making sure the most important things are at the top. There's time limits on conversation, all of that sort of stuff. That's process. But also facilitating a meeting is a really particular skill, and it's really important. So I'd like you to discuss both of those things, how the process and how you could facilitate a meeting to make it effective. There's a good note in the end of that chapter, I think, that was handed out, and hopefully you can grab that from the Moodle if you need to. And it talks about evaluating a team meeting. That might be a really good checklist to look at whether your meetings are being run effectively or not. But I've also got a little question here, discuss how low participators, so people who are silent generally or maybe not participate so much in the discussions, how can they be encouraged to participate more fully? So once again at the back of that chapter there's a little bit of information about particular ways people behave at meetings, and this is one of them. We also discussed a little bit about the nominal group technique, so that was a way of getting people to participate without necessarily having them do a lot of talking. So you might want to have a look at that too. That was in the end of the workshop notes to have a look at that, but I think it's also in the textbook, and you'll find other information about that if you need to. So that's part A, the knowledge test basically. We then move on to the assessment tasks in part B. So this is demonstrating the skills and knowledge rather than just talking about it. So task 1 is to have all the team members, and when I say all, you might want to work on a workable number, say 3 or 4, if you've got a big team, but certainly more than just one other person, because that's probably not a team. But anyway, it needs to be a team of people. We want them to fill in the questionnaire that's attached to the assignment, and this is the first page of it, rating team performance survey forms. So that's the first part of it. That starts on page 7, I think. And there are 4 pages in that survey. It's pretty comprehensive. It looks firstly at the task factors within the team, but then the relationship factors. The two things we said are determinants of how we might proceed with our leadership, and that's task versus relationship. How much do we want to get the job done? How important is it to get that done by a deadline, say? And then how important is it to keep the team together and let them contribute and participate? So that's why it's split up into those two lots of factors. So once they have completed the surveys, there's a form, I think that's on page 11. It's a summary of team performance survey. So that's where you tabulate the results. Basically, we're looking for areas where there might be need for some improvement. And you can note those on the next page. So that's what we're doing to start with, a survey, pretty comprehensive, get the information back. And of course, once you've summarised everything, we'd like you to bring the team together and report on the outcomes of the survey and do some problem solving to deal with the priority problems. So we need you to decide, that's you collectively, to decide on the areas for improvement that have come from the survey and what priority you would give them. We're not going to ask you to work on all of them, just a couple would be really good. And they don't have to be big things, they could be fairly minor things, but if they make a difference to how the team operates and feels about itself, that's a great thing. So, the next part, this is D I'm down to now. For at least two of the highest priority areas selected, follow the procedure listed below. Firstly, alone, so this is when you're thinking about it on your own, and then later with your team, use a problem-solving technique. So one of the ones that you know about from the textbook or the notes that we looked at, and just think about how you might address those priority issues that have been identified. Explain how the technique you chose assisted with the process. So remember, you're going to use that technique with the team as well. So we're then going to see, okay, well, what you thought, was that the best way in the end, or did the team, having some involvement, did that make it a better decision? That's what we sort of asked you in the next part. And then there's a short list here. What are the advantages and disadvantages of working on your own or in a team? So that's a fairly important thing to understand as well. Right. Obviously now we're going to do something about these things. Complete and implement an action plan for the team's solutions. So the action plan here looks like that. I think that's on page 13. There you go. And there's an example of it listed here. So the area for improvement in the example is conflict and grievances. The task is design and introduce a grievance form to be distributed to all staff. That's the task. Who's responsible? Manage it with the admin team. The time frame I've given you is September the 30th. That's after Geelong wins the premiership again. Good on the Cats. Let's hope that happens. And then comments or resources, so a meeting room, paper, printing, and the amount of time it might take to put together. So that's a brief action plan for that particular item. So you'll come up with different things probably, and I'm just giving you two spaces to come up with two different things. But you don't have to use that. You can use any format you like, as long as it covers that sort of parameters that are in the plan. Now, next one is develop at least 2 key performance indicators for the action plan and explain why you selected them. How could they be used as a motivational tool for the team, as well as a promotional tool to other stakeholders? What does that mean? So we need to pick 2 key performance indicators, 2 things that would show us. So they need to be SMART, don't they? Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based. That's what a KPI needs to be. So that the team knows when they see that, they can tick it off, yes, we've achieved that. It might be the number of meetings, it might be another survey done, it could be anything that you think is applicable as a KPI for those action plans that you've got. So motivation for the team, what's that about? Yeah, a KPI can be motivational, can't it? And it's up to you to think about that. Remember, we looked at motivation in the workshop. There's a thing there, a resource from just one pager from Herzberg. It's in the textbook too, I think. That's the hygiene factors and motivational factors that help us motivate people at work. It might be worth referring to that if you wish, but yes, people like to achieve, don't they? So KPIs measure achievement, so it makes sense that could be a motivator. But other stakeholders, yes, it's possible that people outside of our work, the school community, the general public at large, the business bodies or whatever, they could be stakeholders, and maybe what we do could be promoted to them. So the KPIs would tell other people how well we're going about something we think is serious. I've almost given you an answer there, sorry about that. And part F, complete a short report on the progress of actions resulting from the team plan at the end of the assignment period. So that's 4 or 5, 6 weeks away from now, if you wish. I'll give you enough time to put the plan into place, and I'll advise a due date when this goes up on the Moodle and on the email that will be sent. Include copies of the team rating sheets with your report, so just so I can verify the information that you've acted on. Hopefully that seems pretty clear cut. So that's pretty much the centrepiece of showing your leadership skills and talking about them too, and problem solving, which are important components of this unit. There are a couple more tasks though, starting on page, I haven't got the page number on here, but task number 2. And this is meant to be a short report about how responsive people were to participating in the survey. How does it reflect on this on team cohesion and team members' willingness to identify and resolve problems? So in other words, does their lack of participation, if that was the case, show that they're not really that interested in the team? Or the other way around, they were really keen to be involved, and maybe that shows there's a pretty well-functioning team that you're working with. So that's part 3 of that part A in task 2 as well. Part B, how effective was the team meeting that you facilitated? Okay, so remember we're looking at facilitating meetings. What went well and what could have been improved? Just ask you to do a bit of self-reflection there. And what recommendations and strategies to implement those recommendations would you make to someone else who was about to conduct a similar meeting? So that's how well you could coach somebody else to run a meeting like that. And then part C, explain how the team's outputs from the action plan would link job tasks with organisational goals and objectives. So in other words, hopefully your action plan achieves something for you guys in the team, but also for your organisation as well. Recommend at least 2 strategies, this is part D, to maintain team cohesiveness after the action plan has been completed. So how do we keep them in this positive frame is what we're asking there. So just a couple of ideas would be good. Then we go on to task 3. We're asking you to look at your organisation's management system basically, and how that impacts on your own team, or if you want to look at another team, that's fine too. This is meant to be a short report, and it would go to senior management, but just be aware that I'm wanting you to think your team members and colleagues might read this report too. It might be made public. So think about the language you use and how assertive you might be. So firstly, there's a couple of key points around goals, there's a couple of key points around roles, a couple of key points around procedures, and finally some key points around performance development. It's really, in each case, it's asking you to describe how these things are communicated to you and to your team, and how well that's done, how up to date they are, how effective they are, and to come up with a few ideas maybe to improve them based on what's in this unit, the concepts behind it, things like that. So I look forward to reading those little reports and see what you think could be improved. And finally, task 4 is to basically describe the communication channels that are used to ensure that issues, concerns and problems identified by team members are recognised and addressed. So if there isn't anything in place formal, then tell me about the informal process, or maybe recommend a better formal process. And provide an example of how you have done this, or suggest ways that could be facilitated if that ever happened. So that's the communication of concerns and issues going upwards, and the other part is the opposite way. How are unresolved issues, concerns and problems raised by internal and external stakeholders evaluated and necessary corrective action taken. So this is from above or from outside. So if you're in a school, the school community, the Parents and Friends Association, School Association, it might be they're a key stakeholder. There might be some information coming from them that needs to be resolved. So we're asking you to talk about that and provide an example how you might have done things like that. So that is the end of that assignment. It's a comprehensive one, I guess, a fair bit of knowledge testing and a fair bit of demonstrating the skills, but it is a key unit in the Department of Management, and I hope you get some benefit from it and enjoy the process. I'll see you later. Cheers.